The Man of Steel is punching through the pages of the DC Comics. Here's a look at the DC Direct Page Puncher's Superman. Sent to Earth from the dying planet of Krypton as baby Kal-El, was found by farmers Martha and Jonathan Kent and raised as their son Clark. As Clark grew up, the radiation from the Earth's yellow sun gave him enhanced senses and extraordinary powers, including super strength, super speed, heat vision, X-ray vision, and super hearing, super breath, and flight. Now fully grown, he uses his powers to protect his adopted world as Superman. First, before we begin, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the new Page Puncher's Superman. We can have a look at in this video. Grabbing now the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. We're going to start things first in inches, taking it right to the very top of Kal-El's head. The figure stands exactly 6.5 inches in height, or it's 16 centimeters tall. One thing I do find strange is that the figure's packaged under DC Direct, not DC Multiverse, and yet all the things that come included with it, short of the comic book, are all things I'm more to expect with DC Multiverse. Again, not necessarily DC Direct. Still, though, for comparisons, let's bring in a DC Direct. This is what he looks like next to the deceased Superman, a figure we just recently looked at here on this channel. If you'd rather to see what it looks like next to a DC Multiverse figure, you can see proportionately he looks a little bit more closer to angrier-looking Superman. They're not sharing the same body necessarily, but there's definitely a lot more closer aspects to being a DC Multiverse figure than a DC Direct figure. A bunch of stuff does come included with Superman we'll have a look at right now. First of all, the figure comes included with a pretty cool looking trading card. This same artwork will actually be much larger here when we look at the comic in a moment. But as you can see, it does have Superman down below. And on the back, similar to what we usually get with, again, the DC Multiverse stuff, we have the name Superman. Real name down below, Clark Kent, Kal-El. And then a brief read-up you can read for yourself, or it's also the same thing I read at the beginning of this video as well. I still will put this with my DC Multiverse cards, simply that's just where I'm keeping all my cards for the time being. I'm going to move that to the side. Figure also comes included with a comic. Now again, the comic is using the same artwork. You have much more aged-looking cases of both Superman, Batman, and Constantine, also there in the far back there. And then also in the back, there's Black Adam. Now, these all four figures are all the ones that make up the Page Punchers for right now. We will be looking at the rest of these in upcoming videos. But, you know, the artwork is a little more aged on the front, but it's not the same type of artwork that when you flip through the pages, this is kind of more the traditional looking artwork that I'm used to seeing. That's a pretty cool looking Batmobile. I hope at some point that they make a Page Puncher's Batmobile. You can see there's Superman. He's fighting Black Adam. I like also the design of Black Adam. They've given him kind of more the traditional look to Black Adam, but given him this armor on his shoulders. That's a really cool looking look. Again, we'll just flip through this quickly. I don't want to spoil this certainly for somebody that's planning to pick this figure up for themselves. But again, like the artwork is really good on the inside. I'm not as crazy about it on the outside, but the artwork on the inside more than makes up for it. Then the figure comes included with a display stand. Now, we have seen these stands before. The DC logo down below. It's a clear stand, so you can either have Supes standing on it with the one peg that's already there now, or you can also use the adjustable flight stand. Adjustable in the sense that you can adjust the top waist clip. This just slides in, snaps into place, and then you can take the waist clip, as we've done countless times already. You can take your Superman figure, just bring away the cape so you can actually gain access to his waist, and then you just clip that around his waist. Yes, it's not the most exciting way of posing it, or what you can also do too is what I've done in many of the cases, you can also angle it forward as well. Again, probably not the most interesting pose right now, but at least you get the idea. So that's one way of displaying Superman. Personally, for me, I mean, a couple of my Superman I already have displayed in flight poses. I think I'm probably more inclined, to display this Superman standing. Although he does have a little more tougher time to stand. He seems to have a little more of a wobbling issue when it comes to his ankle, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Figure also, for the rest of the things that he comes included with, is a pair of flight hands. The plastic is a bit pale, but it's still more than acceptable, as you can see. The hands are nicely sculpted. One thing I will say, though, not necessarily these hands, but the hands that are currently in the sockets of his forearms do seem a little big. You ever meet somebody that has really large hands, and then you look at the rest of the body proportion that they have, especially like their forearms, and their forearms don't match their hands? I kind of feel the same way with Superman here. His hands seem really big. Maybe it's just me. But you can easily, though, take the hands off and remove them from the pegs, then take the flight hand and pop them into place. Still sort of does look like he has large hands, doesn't it? Those are the accessories, though, that come included with the figure. Now, though, getting a closer look at Page Puncher's Superman. You know, I gotta be honest, this Superman does actually look better loose than it did initially in the packaging. The packaging, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like this figure, but the more time I actually spend with it, I'm actually digging the design of it. I don't know if perhaps it's just also me, but it does bear a little slight resemblance to actor Eric Balfour. If you're not familiar who that character is, he's been in several movies, but the thing that most people remember him from is the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, right? Looks a little bit like Eric Balfour. The head sculpt, like I said, is really quite good. It even has to the little point of the little Superman curl. A very familiar touch, a very expected touch you'd expect to see in a Superman figure. I'm glad to see that they still managed to put that in there. But you know, for what it is, it's actually a good-looking head sculpt for Superman. Slightly smaller eyes, more of a longer head, and a very chiseled set of cheeks and bottom chin there as well. He also has himself a cleft chin, but the paint is actually really good on this. I do think, though, the blush, the little side areas that they've actually painted, maybe is a little too dark. Other than that, I'm just really happy with how this one turned out. Now, they've actually added a blue wash to it. Blue wash can either make or break hair, I find. Sometimes you can put too much of it, but it's just the right amount. It's not too much that it distracts you away from looking at Superman's hair. It's not to the point where it certainly looks like blue hair, but it's just the right amount that gives you a little bit of extra highlights. One last time just to see his head sculpt. His eyes are very small, though, but it kind of works quite well. I mean, he really has a good, interesting side profile for him. Again, a very chiseled, muscular-looking Superman. One thing I really like about the costuming, though, is it has a very almost Brandon Routh Superman suit, especially for the fact that he has the emblem there in his belt. Now, he does have still the underoos, the lower tights, which is nice to see that because, you know, Superman nowadays, we always have done away with the idea that Superman has to have these outer trunks. But it's always nice that when they find a way to put that back onto the figure. The coloring on Superman is quite a very different kind of Superman colors than we're used to seeing. Kind of more of a very dark, grayish blue, in fact. The colors that, for me, I really like. It kind of looks a little bit also like Snyder's Superman suit. At least the original Man of Steel before they had to give him more of that metallic blue. But the dark blue works really well on this one. The emblem is raised, so that's a nice touch on their part. And they painted it nicely, kind of in a really dark burgundy with a very nice yellowish color, kind of an off gold color yellow that they've used for the background there too. I do really like the suit. I think the suit really works quite well for Superman. His boots are matching, of course, the same color as his trunks. It also matches the same coloring of his cape. Let me just talk a little bit about the cape. The cape maybe is the one thing I'm not as crazy about when it comes to this figure. I like this part. Like, if I was to put my hand and cover the front of it, I actually like that. It maybe could have used a Superman actual emblem in yellow on the back, but like this part actually works for me. How it then kind of slithers its way down below here. I kind of wish that the cape could have just been completely straight, or just slightly off to the side. But I'm not as crazy of a fan of the way it kind of zigzags like this. I find it's a little jarring on the suit. Again, I wish that the cape could have gone straight down. Because again, like the sculpting up here is really good and nicely handled. I don't know if I feel like it kind of gets away a little bit from the figure when it gets down below here. It's softer plastic. You know, there's a little bit of give to it. But I don't know if I'm liking as much the shape on the way that the bottom of the cape is handled. But overall, like, it's a really nice looking Superman. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Still not sure why it has to be categorized under DC Direct, but still, it makes for a really nice looking Superman. And you got the benefit and the bonus of having a comic to go along with it as well. For the articulation on this Superman, it's really the same as all the other multiverse figures we've looked at before. So the head is on a ball joint. It can rotate all the way around. You can have Superman's head looking down this much. You can have Superman's head looking up this much. So really, if you did want to put him in a flight pose, you can easily accomplish that by the fact that his head goes up as high as it does. You can also rock the head back and forth as well. For the shoulders go beyond the point of a 90-degree angle bend. You can take those arms as well and rotate them also all the way around. And similar to also DC Multiverse figures, there is that socket joint inside that actually is more there just to conceal the joint. Doesn't really help and give any more additional reach, for example, on the shoulders. He does have a bicep swivel. The figure also does have a double hinge on the elbow, like you actually have Superman face palming himself. giant looking hands. Pretty much covers the entire part of his face. And then, of course, when it comes to his hands, they rotate all the way around. They hinge also up and down. The upper torso is on a ball joint. The lower torso, just below these well-sculpted abdomen muscles, they're also on a ball joint. And then the legs do split out. There's a ratcheted joint working behind the scenes for the thighs. You can take the legs and move them forward and back. This, by the way, the lower trunks is all softer plastic. So not only does it hide the joints, but it also doesn't get in the way of things when you want to move the legs forward and back. Again, I love this blue that they've used. Really, really nice looking blue. Swivels slightly at the top of the thigh, more for the way it's been assembled. You can have a double hinge also there in the knee. There is no articulation here for the boot. I kind of thought there would have been, but there's not. Nothing that I can at least move. The feet do move back and forth this way. And Superman does have a nice ankle pivot with some decent toe articulation as well. They've even gone the extra mile of actually sculpting the undertread of Superman, even to the fact that they've actually added a Superman emblem. How nice is that? At the end of the day, it's a really nice looking Superman. I wasn't sure, honestly, how I was going to receive welcoming. I mean, at least when it comes to these Superman and the rest of the page punchers. They definitely have a very different look to them than what we're used to seeing. The head sculpt, though, on Superman actually ended up being it delivers a decent looking Superman head sculpt. The costuming is very much familiar, kind of what I'm used to seeing with like Brandon Routh's Superman suit, especially with the emblem there in the belt area. And I gotta say, like, I really like the colors on Superman. The only thing I'm not really as crazy about, as already mentioned, other than the fact he has really, really large looking hands, is the way they've got the waving shape of the cape. I just wish, again, like the cape could have gone straight down, or maybe just even slightly off to the side. But this zigzagging doesn't work as much for me, but it's a really, really nice looking Superman. Well worth picking up if you can find one. You know, the more I actually look at Page Puncher Superman attached to his flight stand, the more I'm kind of warming up to the idea that this is the way I'm going to be displaying the figure, especially for how good it looks from the side. I'm, again, really impressed with the color choice that they went with for Superman. They could have easily gone the route of that brighter blue and brighter red, which is a very common practice when it comes to Superman. But, you know, going with this grayish blue that they went with and sort of muting the colors of the red and the yellow works for a very good, very interesting, almost slightly more darker looking Superman. The head sculpt, again, bearing some slight resemblance, the actor from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But, you know, like, honestly, it does work pretty good for a Superman like this. You know, also looking at the head sculpt, I don't know why, for some reason, it reminded me of Aeon Flux. I don't know why it reminded me of that. Sort of the elongated proportions, the kind of the elongated shape of his face. But, you know, it works quite well for Superman. And then there's the cape. I know I already talked enough about the cape already, but just, again, the way they've sculpted the end of the cape, I'm not a big fan of it. You may be a big fan of it yourself, but I just kind of wish that the cape could have been a little bit more straight. I guess to the credit of the cape, the way they've got it flowing like that does lend better to the idea of displaying Superman on the flight stand. Having him standing just on a shelf doing absolutely nothing, just a museum pose, the cape is going to look a little out of place. Maybe you may want to lean more to the direction of actually displaying him on a flight stand. Not that I'm going to be telling you guys how exactly you have to be displaying your figures, but I got to say, it's a nice looking Superman, and I'm certainly looking forward to looking at the rest of these page punchers, thanks to the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Speaking of which, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the new page puncher Superman that we can have a look at in this review. Have you had yet the chance to pick up any of these page punchers? And if you have, let me know which ones you picked up and if you're liking the line so far. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you're seeing and certainly want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. Well, we have wrapped up right now the review for the Page Punchers Superman. Again, we are going to be looking at the rest of the Page Punchers line, and we are also going to be continuing our look, always looking at new stuff from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.